Sonntag, Tiferes hat Betiferes, Beis Iyar, Tovshin Pei, Parshas, Achrei Mois, Kedoshim. So I was asked to give a shir on a Psak Hangocha from the Baal Yet Mangedes, the Reb Marash, a shir in the Hangocha. So we'll try to discuss it in the Gabe, a certain Psak Hangocha or Tshuva that he wrote. It's not going to be a in-depth shir that could take hours and hours to go into Yonim. So instead, I'm going to give a short kitzer of wegen was letztlich in the Tshuva. A short kitzer. It's the talking side that I get at tip. Just to misakim sein la Inyan was mir geschrieben na Hangocha. I had in mind hopefully that there would be a video share. Unfortunately I can only make a recording. Is weißlich is given the rat in abeide, is only b'machshavas is barig and kachang v'zeu. Kaidem call before I go weiter, I must mention, call Emre David Shemevne Emre Mevgung Engam. I must thank my good chaver. And Shmuly super. Without him, I would never be able to put this shit together. When the whole Brackle story came out a few years ago, we had good in-depth discussions, and now he really, really refreshed my memory and Kama Nekudis. And I must thank him for the shir. We're not happy without him. But it's not, I don't know if we call this shir because not really in-depth shir on Akshar. But even on Akshar, it's Tam on Akshar. Okay, fine. So this is a tshuva that was written to Reb Tzvi Hirsch Tamarkin and his son, Reb Yeung Meir Tamarkin. Reb Tzvi Hirsch Tamarkin was at the time in Dubrovna. Later on, a few years later, when his brother passed away, brother of Yosef Tamarkin passed away, so later on he went over, his brother was the Rav in Kremenchuk, so he went over, took it to Rav in Kremenchuk. The Tamarkin family is a very chashuv, known family in Lubavitch. She had a brother, Don Tamarkin, who defended strongly the Rebbe Marash with back and forth with the Koppus, the Rebbe Zalman, Gabe, the Inin of Oisis, the Shimon, and Nogaba, Tzimtzim. It's a chashuv mishpachet. The brother, Rabbi Yosef Tamarkin, had a famous son-in-law who was also a Rav afterwards at Kremenchuk. Actually, but a little later, he was Rabbi Yael Yitzchak, I forgot the full name, Rafanovich, who was a Rav in Kremenchuk. It's a famous family. Many descendants of Lubavitch today, not from the name Tamarkin, but there was a Rav in Kharkov, his name was Aaron Tamarkin. He had many kids, daughters. He had 4 daughters who married Lubavitch and Mishpachas, so Yehuda Chitrik and Tamakurevich and Andre, the brother of Falkan, Michal Yehuda Ayanleib and Shem Shemenovich. So anyways, so he was a big Talmid Chacham, and he and his brothers have tshuvas that were found in University of Los Angeles. They're still in Ksav Yad. Be'emes, it would be a good in a pigeon shvun to print this for him. Anyway, so this tshuva is found in these Ksav Yad over there, meaning they had tshuvas, and this tshuva, he obviously wrote a letter to Rebbe Marash, and Rebbe Marash responded. In the same bichon over there, it would have been min haroy to print the letter he wrote to Rebbe Marash. I mean, if you found the tshuva of the Rebbe Marash there, probably you find his letter there, because, as we'll see, it's easier to sometimes understand wegen was if you have the original tshuva. So the original letter. So it's a shad, we don't have it, but that is what it is. So we'll have to work with what we have. We'll try to piece this thing together. Now that's been the that. Now we have to figure out b'chal wegen was in the tshuva. At the time this was printed, it seemed like there's not too much others here, but at the beginning it seems like bedavar hatanagim magdelim and kibalti v'hine, it says tanagim magdelim, and in the Eirech calls it, he assumes it's talking about turkeys that were born from America, and only later on in that time of the Reb Marash was a whole machlokes about it, and the Hin and Tzedek, and B'meila he's writing a whole tshuva about it. It's very, very problematic to say it's talking about turkeys, and it's not about turkeys. It's about something called cochin chickens, and I'm going to explain in a second what these cochin chickens are. I'm going to explain what they are, and then I'm going to prove that we're talking about the cochin chickens. It's called from the tshuva. It's not about turkeys, it's about cochin chickens. Turkeys are not from Turkey, and there's a mandazach that many tshuvas, they think that it came from India, because what happened is many countries, okay, let's start over again. In the end of year Rishon Nun Dal Rishon Beis, they came and they found America. They found the Caribbean. They found the American hemispheres, the southern hemisphere, the South America, North America. They found new plants, new food, new animals, and it was a whole new world. And they brought it in. These people who went to these countries, to develop them, they were originally trying to get to India. They thought they're going to go around the world and they're going to find India. In the way, they found these countries. So, and you should just know that the Caribbean sometimes there were countries that from Europe that controlled these countries. These countries were called West Indies companies, East Indies companies. West Indies companies was talking about these Caribbeans were other places that were developed within what's called now today America, or East Indies was in India, because they would go to these places and mine the place for spices, for plants, for sugar, for whatever it is, and they would bring it over to Europe. And they were called the Dutch East Indies Company, which was mainly in the Indian area, and then the West Indies Company, v'chomu. So anyways, being it as it may, the people in Europe, who were in Eastern Europe, or these places, they got confused. They see things coming in from these places. They hear these Indies companies, they think it's coming from India. But it's a corpus from India, b'chal. So they thought that these chickens come from India, and it's a problem. We'll see in a second what's the mistake. Turkeys don't come from India, and the other stuff, they don't come from India. They come from, actually, turkeys originally from Mexico. Why was it called Turkey? Basically, it could be Turkish merchants sold it. I don't know. It went from there, it went through England, and from England it went through the whole America, the whole Europe. So that's what the Turkeys come originally from Mexico and Bechal from America. There is something called Kachin chickens. Now, Kachin is actually a place in Kachin is actually a place in India, by the way, but Kachin is a place in the southwest coast of India. But Kachin chickens are not from India either. Kachin chickens are actually from China. China at a certain time was there, where they had in their country, they didn't allow trade with other countries. In a certain period of time, around 200 years ago, the Americans came and forced China to open up the doors and to have trade. So then you started having these chickens that were coming in from China, they were coming to Europe and North America. It started actually coming in the Taf Reish Yuds, and they were called Kachin Chinas, Shanghai birds. Now these birds were different than a lot of the birds that they had till that time, and were very different. And B'meila Shayla started arising. Now Derech Agav, today's chickens are a new type of breed, which are be'emes elikach of this Kachin chicken. It's an interbreed of kama chickens together from Ong, Avun, Av Echad, Kungani. There's one big chicken, in the time of the Mishnayos, jungle fowl, I think it's called. But this is this Kachin chicken that was coming at the time. Now we have a from a new interbreed, where different scientists in around the Tufs and Yud tried putting things together to put together, based on other things, putting together this and they come with this thing. So at that time, there's a whole shayla because it was a new chicken and shaylas. So first, it came through England. And it was called, in many tshuvas, you have the English Hon, the American Hon, something called Indica Hon, and there's 20 different names. And I have to mention that in that time, people started asking shaylas again on the turkey. Because I forgot to mention, when the turkey came from America to Europe, at first it was makul by everybody. Before Shayna Shavos, there aren't too many truths about it. But the fact is, it's given angenommen. With this angenommen, it was makul, it was out. fine, gewaldig. But there were no signs about it. Later on, with a new type of thing, there was also an African guinea fowl. It's not really a bird. It's not really a chicken. These things started coming in from all these places. So then they had to flag new shyness. So they flag new shyness. Flag shine after Turkey. If we found it come to us. So and there are many different names in the Chuvas. But this was called the English Shahan because it originally came into Europe through England, who brought it in from China, and there was something called Americanahan and other types of names. There are many different names given in the Chuvas, and we have to figure out. I am convinced that, and I'm not just convinced, it's partial that this is talking about these Kachin chickens and not the turkeys. I'll explain in a second. The first main raya is, we're going to see in the Hemshech of the Tshuva from the Rebbe Marash, that the Rebbe Marash discusses interbreeding from a regular chicken that had tilden in that area, with the Kachin chickens. And discusses and brings the ayah from that at a certain point, which we'll get to in the Tshuva. Now, turkeys do not interbreed with, they don't mate with regular chickens. It doesn't happen. If you push it, it could be against the technique to do it. It's not mashma because it's mashma from the tshuva of the Rebbe Marash that's done freely. So it's nish mashma. Another zach is that later on in the tshuva discusses that these Tarnagolim, they break their own eggs. The eggs are too small for the weight of these chickens, and mainly they need to use the regular eggs of regular chickens. I'm sorry, but we don't find azam and maisa with turkeys. We only find azam and maisa with Kachin chickens. We do find now it's not such an issue. We don't have Kachin chickens today, anyways. But today it's not such an issue because it could be how we fed them. We feed them today. It could be because of more inbreeds and more changing. But at that time, 100 and something years ago, there were this big discussions about these eggs being cracked. But we never find the discussion of turkeys. So it's pasha. It's not about that. So that's been again that. Now, Nachazach. There's one more Nakuda. This other Kuda is extra credit. It's a brown. It's it's icing in the cake. It's a very good point, but it's icing in the cake. So the mice is a chazay. As we mentioned, these chickens were newer type of chickens. They look different. They look bigger. And there was a lot of shyness that was going on right away. It wasn't a regular Messiah, so we're going to discuss the Musik of Messiah. So they started having tshuvas about it. Now again, it's very hard. There are 20 different names in the tshuvas. The only way to know is not to read the name, but to read how they describe these things. Then you can figure out what we're talking about. Because they said, again, regular turkey, what we talk about, started from Mexico. Anyways, so let's discuss one tshuva. There's a Sefer Yehuda Yanga from the Maria Sad. He discusses about 160 years ago or something like that. He discusses what he calls take. Either he calls it Kachin chicken. I think he calls it Kashin China, which were these places from China, and the name Kachin came together, which what's it called? I'll discuss in a second. It's not even Kachin. It's a mistake. You see how all these things change. India. It's not even India. We'll get to that in a second, which place it really is. But it was put together. Why was it what's it called? Because over there also, because in Eastern Europe, they were getting their chickens through England, so they called it the English things. So what's it called? You should just want to point out in the Sefer Nachum Eshkong. In other places, they keep on calling it. He writes over there these chickens. He says that Tanageum Shekarim Indisha Hiner, that came from India to England and there to Ashkenaz. Okay, it's a mistake. It didn't come from India. That's a mistake. He thought 300 years it came from India, but it was coming through England so that's why it was called English Shahan. So, anyways, back to our discussion over here. I went off topic. So the Maria Sad, he writes, what's it called? He's writing a tshuva somebody named Reb Nosson Adler. Reb Nosson Adler had a great uncle who was the Rebbe Chassam Sefer, but he wasn't named after him. He was a Rav in Hamburg, and later on one of the chief rabbis in England. And he wrote a tshuva to someone in the year around Tafresh Chof, and he writes, the tshuva, the Mari Asad Yehuda Yange, is quoting the tshuva, and he says, and this you ask, what's the din of these English hinner? So the tshuva says over there, it's which he's probably talking about kosher china. That's what he says, which was a mo over there, and now it's coming over here. So he's quoting the tshuva over there, and in the tshuva he's discussing. You asked me this question, and I answered you that I have a Messiah in England. We have already a Messiah for many years. It's just like our Tanagang, but just a little bigger. What we see over here is that we see in the tshuva is that that he's bringing what's called he's bringing a Messiah from England. What's it called? A second. He's being clearly a Maisa with the Messiah from England. Now, we have nowhere that it says it's a Messiah from England in regards to the turkeys. There is a Messiah, and that's discussed over here. A Messiah from England, and he's saying it's a Messiah from England, so it makes sense with the English hinner. It's a shad, because the whole thing, as we're going to see soon, is written in hints, and we should discuss this. I'm going to discuss this later again. And some of it's hinting to things that were written to him by the Rav Tamarkin. Had we had the original tshuva of Rav Tamarkin, it would have been, it would have been all clear, many things. What I just want to point out is that Bechal, catch in China, is actually part of Vietnam. The word catch in China. So I think that even the fact that these chickens came from, the Kachin chickens came from China, but it was called Kachin, in the Tshuva he's calling it Kachin China. That's also a mistake, because that would go to Vietnam and not to China. Anyways, that's in regards to that. I just want to point out, since we're talking about Mercedes, so as I said, that since many people thought it came from India, I forgot to mention, so they thought that in the Indian Yiddish Kihillah had a Messiah, and it says in Shulchan Aruch, if one Kihillah has a Messiah, so then it can help possibly it can help for another Kihillah. I don't know what punct that would mean, the Indian Kihillah, because I don't know what it means, punct they have a Messiah. That's not so called punct, especially which Yidden lived in the 300 years ago. So I don't understand why the Pasuk Bechal brought down India Messiah, but Bechal, we know that it wasn't from India, it came from Mexico. Okay, so now let's get to the Guf Ashayna. So we have to. So he's asking him about these chickens, and he's asking him what he thinks. It seems to be that he suggested certain ideas how to be mated it, and the Rebbe accepts these reasons, plus he adds some more reasons. So I'm basically going to go over what these reasons are, and that will be the whole thing. But before that, we have to make a slight little hagdama. B'chal, there's something called a Muscovy duck. Now, as we mentioned, this turkey never really had a controversy, but the thing called the Muscovy duck did have a controversy. The Muscovy duck is also from the new countries, and mostly, it was mostly then it was known, and originally people didn't see it, but then when Frumme Yidden started looking into it, it raised a tremendous controversy. And some of the discussions in the Muscovy Duck we see in general in the other discussions, and we'll bring one of it up soon over here. But I'm just saying, it's interesting that Turkey never had this ganze Meise, but on the other hand, the Muscovy Duck had a mamish ganze Meise. And a whole machoikis. And it seems like it's al derech, this other chicken had this whole machoikis. There was also geese, certain types of geese that had certain machoikis. And we'll discuss one of the svaris that applies to these geese and these ducks will also apply to our case over here, to these cats and chickens. A very similar svara that comes together. So we have to have a sagdama. B'chang, it's the questions regarding the kashrus of previously unknown species of birds are much more challenging than regular other things. And some we're not sure. We're not sure because it's a little different and more complex than animals and fish. The Torah in Shmini and later on say that Dvarim, you have certain, specifications how to identify and indicate which animal is kosher. Yeah, mangagera, mafresas parsa, snapper for kaskasas, for fish, and these things, you see, birds, it doesn't say that. Birds, the Torah just says, you have 24 minim, which are not kosher, and it's mashma that everything else is kosher. Now, the Maisa is initially say Pashat B'chang. The Gemara, there's interbreeding of many of these minim. These minim, the Gemara identifies 100 different minim for one min. It's not so clear B'chang. So, the Gemara says that basically, in order for a bird to be kosher, it has to have, first of all, it cannot be doitis, it cannot be a predator, as we'll explain in a second, and it has to have three things. An extra toe, a zefek, which means a crop, and it has to have the heilige korkeven, the pupik, which the inner lining can be peeled. What's this ma'aseh with this extra toe? So it's a mechaikis, a poskim, how to define the extra toe, a mechaikis, Rashi Taisvis. Then you have this ma'aseh with the crop. The crop, basically, crop is like it's area right under the throat before it goes to the stomach where it stores the food. Usually, the kosher animals have them. By ophis that are birds of prey, it's just a widened area in the esophagus, but they don't have that area where it stores the thing. So that would be a second indication. And the third indication is what we call this peelabong korkeven, gizzard. Okay, birds don't have teeth, and how are they supposed to chew their food? So they only process it in the stomach. So one of the stomachs is the thing that actually does the chewing and everything, and that's the gizzard. And the muscular outside layer can easily be peeled away from the interior sac that contains the food. And this is different than predators, birds of prey, and other things they eat. Meat and fish, and there, in such a case, the gizzard has a thin wall that serves to store the food rather as mechanical digestion. And there's no outer muscular layer to be peeled away. So this is another nukodah. So here's the shaila. If you have these three nukodahs, do you need, and then it cannot be a deitis, it cannot be a predator. Here, what is a deitis b'chang? What is a deitis? Is it something that takes its claws and puts it on another behemoth? Is it something that puts its weight on another behemoth, eats it live? It's a mechaikis rishonim. I'm not going to get involved. It's just a predator. Bechal, there's a tshuva from the Tzemach Tzedek Barichas Gadol in Yeridei Simen Samach, where he gets involved with Barichas and explains Mamash Mesader all the shittas, the 4 shittas what a deiris, the many shittas what a deiris is, the many shittas of the current shayla, all these shaylas when they get birds. See that tshuva in the Tzemach Tzedek in Simen Samach. So anyways, the shayla is, and this discussed in the tshuva, doesn't need, if you have these 3 simanim, do you need to know for a fact that it's not a deiris? Or is it enough to say that it has these 3 simanim, it's genug? So the Ma'aser Shitas Rashi says, no, you need to know it's a deiris, you need to know for it's a fact it's a deiris. And if you don't know for a fact it's a deiris, so then it's not genug. You have to have 3 simanim, plus to know it's a fact it's a deiris. That's Shitas Rashi. Other Shitas and Yeshedim say different things, but this is Shitas Rashi, which is angenommen in Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. But the Ramah learns into Rashi, and this is the way we understand, and the Tzemach Tzedek is very clear about it, emphatic about it, and this is something that we have to point out next, is that this thing that, because we don't know what's a deiris and what's not a deiris, you cannot have any bird that's considered kosher unless you have a Maseda. And the Ramah is very clear about it, very sharp about it. He writes in Darkei Moshe about it already. It seems like this is what Mechaber says, but the Ramah is more stringent about it. This is a very, very important thing that has to be brought out. And Rashi already learned this in the Gemara Chulin in Daf Samach Beis. There was a Ma'aser with Ternegul Gulta, the Agma, where people were eating a treifa bird, a non-kosher bird, because they were applying the physical characteristics, and then it turned out it was a mistake. So that's where against the Ma'aser Fangsachon, and what you call it, we're gonna have to discuss this a bit. So, how does the V'hesis, the Marash, deal with this? Because it's brought up in our discussion here. Yeah, the נחum. So we say we have to have a Maseda. It's very complicated. The ganze Ma'aser is all complicated, and throughout the days there was so much machlokes. And the Minchas Chinuch writes in regards to explaining the full identification of kasher or eifes. He writes you have to write a chibur on its own, and many poskim did that. The Chassam Sofer writes in a tshuva, after he writes several pages of explanation on the subject, he writes that be'emes, the rest of his thoughts on this topic is in a separate piece. The beginning of Eibshitz wrote a ganze Sefer, Pnei Nesher. The Beis Yitzchak writes that he refers to 3 different quintresim he wrote on this matter because it's a ganze Ma'aser. And that's one of the reasons, with all these complications, but this makes it even more complicated when we do it, is you can only do something that has a Maseda. Now the emes is that many poskim, like as we said, the Zaayanz and Eibshitz and the Sefer, this is in case you place the achs on the Ramah, of the Ramah, but as I said, first of all, there are many poskim that are maskim, and the Shalmeish reflect of the Ramah, but the Samachayk is a poskim, but the Tzemach Tzedek is very strong that we found Rashi, we found the Ramah, and very, very strong about it. So here's the story. So you have this tshuva over here, you have the shayla. So in fact, this is in the 6th Igris in Igris Kodesh from the Reb Manash. He says that this hon, we have this chicken in. To be exact, there was the Opium Wars in 1839 when the British forced China to open its ports to foreign merchants. And then you had in the 1840s, first trading ships were reaching Europe with these unusual birds. They're not sure what to do with it. They look similar to chickens, but they were much larger, and their legs were feathered. And there were many other differences. They weren't sure what to do about it. And it took them time. So he has the mice is here's one of the differences. One of the differences is that it eats from the Gemara says that if that if it chaps something in the ear and eats it, so that it's a simon, it's a datus, it's a problem. So he says over there, he wanted to say it was all right. Well, even though that they grab this thing from the ear, the fact is, oh no, not it's a datus. It's a simon that it's a oif tamea. That's what the Gemara says in Chungen, and it's brought in Shulchan Aruch. But here you have 3 simonim in the guf. There's all 3 simonim with the toe, the gizzard, and the crap. And he says also we see they're not datus, so you can't answer it. What do you mean it's not datus? What about the Ramah? We said that Ramah, you need a Masada. So this is a very, very shredder thing. It's not addressed. This is why it's very much mashma that he's quoting it's for Shemarkin, and this is how important it would be to see the actual tshuva. We could say as but it's very hard to say this, but we have to say it. We have no choice. There's a sefer called Arugois Haboisim, not Arugas Haboisim, that people mistake of Greenwald from Chust, but Arugois Haboisim whatever. So he comes up with a chiddush. We wouldn't have heard of it, Stamazay, but it's quoted in the Daika Tshuva. That's how you know a lot of stuff. You find them out from the Daika Tshuva, the other Tshuvas. So he says that this Ramah says you cannot be Seimech of the Samani Tada, and you need to say this, is that's when we don't know, we're not sure if it's Zaytis. But if we see it for many, many years, and we see it all the time, we see that it's not Zaytis, you don't need a Messiah B'chan. And he explains the turkey that way, the turkey which we said, which we have no machaiks about, so he explains how the turkey works, and he wants to apply it to other cases, and it's going to probably apply to this cats and chickens also. It seems like that this is how we'll touch it into the Reb Barash's Tshuva. I mean, we have no other option. It just says Shemi Achar. Maybe we could translate it Shemi Achar Shanaroyim Sheinim Dersim Kein Anu Ngasser Be'oisam. Shemi Achar Shanuroyim. It seems like since you could maybe get tight shit that since it's a zay, we see it already for a while, so maybe it's a different word. I don't know. It's a deichik, but that's the only way to do it. Then he goes with another reason, and he comes up with a ma'aser called hybridization. What's the ma'aser hybridization? So the Gemara says in Chaydes Tav Zayin that Yeshua ben Levi said that it's not possible to make a hybrid between a behemoth tamei and tahira. Tahira tamei, you cannot cause conception to come out from the behemoth tahira tamei. Chayis behemoth chayis darson. It has to be either tamei or tameim together, but not a tamei tahir. To be 2 tameim or 2 tahirim. Even though we could say it's mashma behemoth chayis, it doesn't discuss eifis. The Torah says by eifis it says ha tamei. Not Tamea, but he thinks it's the same thing, which is interesting. In the Lashon Rambam, in another truth from the Tziv in Chav Beis, he quotes the Lashon Rambam the way Lashon Rambam it's mashma it's tako oifus, not just chayis name is oifus. So what's the story over here? We see that there are all type of chickens are interbreeding with these chickens. The fact is they're having kids. Muslims zagin, they're not chickens. They have eggs, and they lay eggs, and they have new chickens. Muslims zagin that at the same min. Then he asks the question. Rashi in Perikam Ezvav Pasuk of Dalet in Parshas Vayishlach. So Rashi brings over there a ganze Meise from Medrashaba, this Ayah, the person by the name of Ayah, he was a mamzer. He brought mamzerim to the world because he would go and he would take put a donkey and a horse together, and they came out of that a mule, and the kids are able to make interbreeding. So this again, you have to know what's the kasha. I mean, what's the kasha? You have to figure out what the kasha is, and this again, it would be a good thing. It had the tshuva. So he says it's in one case it's 2 behemoths tameis. There's 2 behemoths tameis that could work. Here, if you're saying one is a min behemoth, one is a min a tamei, one's a min tahira, so if you would say then they wouldn't be able to interbreed. And so B'mela, he brings it. So that's the first reason why he brings its mutter. Now this ma'aseh with hybridization is really a machlokes a poskim. There are many poskim that write a zay, many poskim that write a zay. The Avnei Nezer wants to. The machlokes is true from Avnei Nezer that people translate in many different directions. But it seems from what you call the fact is that this is the way the Rebbe Manash learns it. And we can prevent the need for Meseda. You don't need Meseda if you have, besides the fact that you see it's not a data, you don't need Meseda when you see that you have hybridization. So that's been again that. Then he discusses a second thing. I'm sorry. He says that's right. He says that, and this is what and this is what we discussed. It cannot be talking about Turkey because you don't have hybridization with Turkey. Then you have the next thing is that it says that you have these birds are very big and they crush the other eggs and you have to mix them with these eggs and Sorry, that's the next one. The second one is he says they have a Meseda in another country. England already, as we quoted before, the Tshuva from Abdas and Adler, England has a Meseda for a few years. They, for some reason, they checked it in. They had Meseda, so it's all right. So the Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Pei Beis. The Shulchan Aruch says in the end of Siman Pei Beis. Shulchan Aruch says as I in Siv Hey, first of Dal. Mishahu mimakim shenegim iser ba'oif echad mipnei she'enga mesedes v'hangacha makim sheyesh lahem mesedes yachan echad b'makim she'hangacha sham filu daite nachne v'myatza mimakim sheyesh lahem mesedes v'hangacha makim she'enga mesedes mudrachis. He says someone is going from a place that they were negi iser in a certain oif because why? Not because they mesedes that was bad. No, because they didn't have mesedes. Then he goes to a place that has a mesedes. He can eat from there even if he's planning on going back. And if he goes from a place that's Meseda is good, and he goes to a place that's not Meseda, he can eat it also, both directions. What happens if he's going from a place that's nothing? It says, he comes from a place that's empty. He goes to one place, there's no Meseda there, but he knows that another place they have a Meseda. So the Shulchan Aruch says, some people say it's good, some people say it's not good. And the Yesh Achos to Divrei Oisa. That's what Shulchan Aruch says. However, the Rebbe Marash says that if you look in the Shach, there's a mistake over here. Basically, the Shulchan Aruch learned that there's a mistake between the Rashba and the Rosh. Where it seems from the Rosh that the Rosh is a matter. It says that as long as you don't have a Meseda, that it's Asr. So then you could and you have the other one in some places it has a Mercedes mutter you can rely on it. It seems like the Rashba asks it, but the Shach and he quotes the Drisha and the Mashang. If you're ma'ayin the lashon of the Rashba is not saying that if one place has a Mercedes around the place, the other place no one has anything, you can't eat it. No, it's talking about where there's another place in the world has. That a place where neig isser. If you come to a place and the place was neig and isser, in another place neig ahet, you can't base yourself on the place that's neig ahet. You have to rely on the place that's neig isser. So we never had a Meseda that it's asser, and here we have a place that it's more. Just you can apply another sniff that it would be all right. What's the third reason? This is very interesting. This takes us to Siman Pei Vav. He says, this is what we said before, you have the Tanagoyim, they break the other small eggs. Again, we didn't have this problem by turkeys, only by the cotton chickens. So what do? They put they take the eggs of these cotton chickens, and they take the regular chickens to sit in them, to roost. And therefore, in our place, they don't grow the same way. It doesn't breed the same way it breeds in the other countries because you're doing this kind of thing, putting that chicken over there. So he says, for sure you can't have a problem because in the end of the day, our chickens that come out end up looking like a regular chicken. Now this is complicated. This is not say pashut, but I'm just going to say, I'll say why it's so pashut in a second. But He says as it says in Shulchan Aruch in Sim Pevav Zayin that if you have a chicken hatch, a small egg hatched, and you have another chicken come out, and the egg came from a treifa, even though an egg that comes from a treifa is also the chicken's all right. Then the Rama says, but you shouldn't do lechatchila. So what's the shot? You shouldn't do lechatchila. So he quotes the Yaivitz, very interesting. I'll show you this in the Yaivitz. But the Yaivitz is quoted in the Pesach Tshuva Dartin. It's not that when the Rama says lechatchila, you should be careful. Not you should be careful to eat. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it. But not that you shouldn't do lechatchila. You shouldn't put it there. But not that it becomes usher. Tevel, a person should not use tevel to grow other types of plants. But if you did use tevel to grow the other plants, so you could eat it from it. There, there's other mefarshim. Let's say there's the poskim. The Taz says that it means that he learns it that it's taka aser. Like you have gdungei truma. There's one of the yud ches takanis from Bishamai. They snuck in a whole bunch of takanis asugi b'fnei atzmi. So one of the takanis was that gdungei truma have a dinner truma. Gdungei truma doesn't have truma, but gdungei truma, what's gdungei truma? You have crops that grow from truma itself, so then it becomes aser. Why does it become aser? So there are two reasons given: Chanina and Rava. One of them is because it's going to be stealing money from Gaza from the Kohanim, and the other one is because they're going to keep at the home this truma, because if they have it, people are going to keep it, not going to give it to the Kohen. That's Reb Chanina. They're going to keep it, not going to give it to the Kohen, because they want to make their crops from it for chumu, and that's going to be mutter. The second reason is because people they're going to start having aganse meisim with truma tameya, that you can get your crops out of it, but in the meantime, which will be all right, which will be chumun, but in the meantime, the Kohen will have truma tameya over there, and you might touch it. So the svar over here is if you have these eggs that are treif, that it might be hatched, a guy might eat the egg, he might eat it, and b'meila, he might eat it, so we make a takana just like by the truma. The Beishami made a takana. Beishami made a takana that you should not take it because you might because the person might become tummy, might keep the truma tmei in his house. So to hear the eggs might be, the guy might eat the egg. That's the Taz. And he explains it's also to eat it. The Kurz Kesef asks many kasha, so he explains it all differently. The Yaivitz explains it differently. He says when we have other cases, you have Orla and not only Orla, Tabo, Bechum, all these things, you're not allowed to use it. But if you use it, it doesn't become Asr. So he explains the same thing here. You can't apply that thing, and you see the other cases that it's also to do it. You shouldn't do it, and that's what the Rama means. The Rama means you shouldn't do it. Now he adds another point, and it's actually in the Yaivitz, it's Derech Agav, but the Pesach Tshuva brings it befeidish, so the Rebbe Manash brings it. The Bechar, why is it mutter? Because the Gemara Tmura says the Shach brings this down. Also, that's the next step. First of all, so he says that Bechar, what's the problem doing it? What's the problem here by the Beitzah? So he originally compared it to Tevel in the Shalos Yaivitz, but he added another point in Derech Agav, and here the Tevel point wasn't brought b'chal. It just, the Pesach Tshuva quoted B'ikah, so he's quoting the Pesach Tshuva, that because it's similar to Mevatel Issa Chatchila. Basically, a guy who's and if you use that sword, it's only for himself, not for somebody else. If you want to say it's also, if a person is about to Issa Chatchil for himself, so someone else could take it, it's mutter for him because no reason. But for him, it's like he's mevatel. What does mevatel Chatchil mean? Mevatel Chatchil means he takes something and puts it in a 16 atvatel b'shishim. What is he doing over here? He's taking something that's really awesome and becomes that. So b'meila we have a problem with that. Now, what's the reason? What does he quotes that it says in the Gemara in Tumura and Davzayin Amud Aleph that the Gemara says, he's just quoting the thing that this little thing was hatched from a bear it's mutter because it only hatches when the egg already falls apart. So it's a naya mice. It's a new entity. It's not connected to the first entity. When the egg came out, it was still part. It was still developed within the hen, but here it came out. So it's a new entity. So b'meila it is mutter. So that's the mice with the egg. Duh. And this is very strong. We have to understand, but this is what it says in the tshuva, that these eggs look similar to our eggs already. So since it looks similar to our eggs, and then the chickens that come out already look much more similar, so then there should be no problem. The only thing is that the reason over there it's not a different min that comes out. And this is the Shadakite was mit einfach me can all of it, then me can verantworten, but it's over time. It's the same min. It's not a different min that comes out. Adrabe, the din is in bechayres and sangacha. Hayetz min atayr but even a tamei hayetz min atayr is tired, and a tired hayetz min atayr is tamei. So it's not the vart. Here it's a different vart. It's the same min. Just one was treif because, if it's the milk that comes out of a treif for the animal is not treif as nevela. No. Not treif as behema tameya, but it's a behema tahira. But the behema is treif for other reasons. So then this will also be treif. Here it's the vart is that it's a different min coming out. So I don't punct say it's a simple vart. There's part of it in them, but I just wanted to point this out now. Just to mention the point of datus, I just did want to add one could have negate datus, a word that you could discuss. This is a pash echet netuva, and it's a motzadik in Simon Samach. So he discusses something called a goose. What's the mice with the goose? The Baal says that, and this Baal is quoted. It's quoted all over the place that any bird that has a wide beak and a webbed feet like a goose is not datus. So if you have that with the three other simanim, so we can use according to the Shulchan Aruch to matter unknown species. The mice is nish as a pashet because it's an ish pashet, and this is discussed in all paskim. But the mice is nish as a pashet according to Tzaddik. Tzaddik explains that be'emes, and there's a lot of kashas in this thing. I'm not going to get involved with all the kashas, but the Tshuva Tzaddik explains that according to the Baal Mar, what's a datus? A datus is a bird that hunts and eats other birds, similar to a lion. So a bird, which is, any bird that's similar to a goose, which is physically incapable of being a datus, so it's incapable, so it cannot be a datus. But that's all. This is all to explain the Baal Mar. She tasai. However, according to Rashi, that first of all, Rashi holds, and I don't want to get involved in the details now, but I'll get involved that the bird holds the food down with its feet. So even with the goose comparison, this is a pashat because it's much more narrower. And Nachazach, Rashi Bechal rejects the whole thing. He says you need a Messiah. So this whole goose comparison is a big problem according to Rashi Bechal. That's the way it comes up from the Tzaddik Tzaddik. So it's Bechal nicht pashat. Was noch habe ich gewollt sagen? So the Lemarash answers says something else, which is very important to know. And you're asking Psak Din, but that wissen hangocha ma'is. Now it's very uncomfortable to say this, but nach wissen sachmo we have machoikes. Sometimes the machoikes is l'shem shemayim, and sometimes it's habul shem shemayim. Sometimes there's politics involved. Me darf doch wissen politics. And more when we paskin to. It's not fun, but me darf doch wissen. So that the Lemarash says that he says yechon av mizbo, and in our city. They eat it without a pickbook, and the Amolda was Chakira Drisha, and they were Machshirit, and he thinks the reason it's coming because certain Sheikhtim, it seems like, I don't know the Matthias, but the old type of chickens, certain Sheikhtim got a special tax or something like that, they got a little money or something like that. These new type of chickens, they're not getting money off of it. So they're making a ganze Pumus because they want to get money. It's a ganze Meise mit Geld. Aha! So that's the real Meiset. Al Negebedover. It's very simple. We had this Meiset a few years ago. I'm comfortable because Rabbi Landau didn't quote this tshuva, a hinner or tzedek. It wasn't Meshachas. But the basis of this tshuva, let's say a few years ago we had the Meiset with the brakel. So first of all, people, they had to invest in the brakel and it costs a lot of money. How are you going to get people to eat it? So you have to say everything's treif. Mamash treif, because or else why would someone pay more money? It doesn't have much meat. Okay. So they have to say it's safe. The other ones take it as a front to their kasha, say everything else is safe. But the truth is, it's a naya maisa, but you see, the first part of the tshuva, the benegate the hybridization, the shaila is, if you're using all three seifim together, or it's each sniff stands on its own. Do we say that Rebbe Rash holds that hybridization is good enough, or you need to have the other three things, and that's how you have to apply to the bracha. But one thing you do see, as the dog Geld reingemischt, it's an andere Parsha in Ganzen. The truth is, in the Lamdas I for sure didn't cover it, and even in practical stuff, just like I don't know, I wanted to bring out, but we'll leave it at this.